The translator's face went pale when I opened my mouth. Queen Vishara's four eyes widened, two vertical pupils dilating in what I'd learned was shock among her species. The throne room, carved from living crystal that hummed with ancient resonance, fell silent except for the rhythmic pulse of the walls themselves. I shouldn't have spoken. Protocol demanded I wait for the translator to interpret my greeting, but the child, small, green-scaled, no more than 5 in human years, had wandered from her mother's side and touched my hand. When she looked up at me with those innocent golden eyes, I'd responded on instinct, in her language. The real one. Not the diplomatic pidgin that had evolved over the last century of human-alien contact, but the ancestral tongue that predated the fall of their first empire. Words I shouldn't know. Words that, according to every xenolinguist in the Confederation, had been dead for 3,000 years. The child giggled. "Your accent is funny," she said in the same ancient dialect. "But you speak like the old Hollow's grandmother showed me." Queen Vishara rose from her throne. 7 feet of regal presence, her ceremonial robes shifting through colors that had no names in any human language. The royal guards along the walls, 20 of them, each armed with plasma lances that could reduce me to atoms, didn't move. They didn't need to. Their stillness was more threatening than any weapon. Captain Sarah Chen. The Queen's voice carried harmonics that made my bones vibrate. She spoke in standard Confederation common, clipped and precise. "Explain. Now." My diplomatic training screamed at me to apologize, to claim confusion, to defer to the translator who stood frozen beside the throne. But I'd been a xenoarchaeologist before the war, before the Kreth invasion had forced every human with any talent into military service, before I'd traded my excavation tools for a ship and crew. I met the Queen's gaze, all 4 eyes. "Your Majesty, I've studied your people's history, the fragments we found on dead worlds. Pre-collapse texts that survived in vacuum-sealed archives. I never thought I'd have reason to speak it aloud." "Those archives are classified," the translator hissed, a thin, nervous man named Keloth with scales that shimmered blue-gray. "Sealed by royal decree, forbidden to all but the Keeper of Memories." "The Keeper died 2 years ago," I said quietly. Still in that ancient tongue, because something told me switching languages now would be worse than continuing. "During the Kreth bombardment of Thessar Prime. I was there. I tried to save her." The Queen's secondary arms, normally held folded against her torso during formal audiences, slowly extended. A gesture I recognized from my research. Not aggression. Attention. Deep, focused attention. "You were at Thessar Prime." Not a question. The Queen descended the crystal steps, each footfall making the floor sing in sympathetic resonance. "You saw the Keeper. I held her while she died. The memory tasted like ash and ozone. She made me promise to preserve what she'd protected. So I memorized what I could before the fires took the archive. 11,000 words, basic grammar structures, enough to reconstruct conversations, if not poetry." The child tugged at my hand again. "Can you tell me a story in the old words? Please?" Her mother, one of the Queen's attendants, I realized, looked horrified. She rushed forward to pull the child back, bowing so low her forehead nearly touched the floor. "Forgive my daughter, Captain. She doesn't understand protocol." "No." The Queen raised one primary hand. The attendant froze. "Let the child stay." I knelt, bringing myself to the girl's eye level. The marble floor was cold through my uniform. Around us, the throne room seemed to hold its breath. Even the crystal walls had quieted their eternal song. "I know a story," I said, softly in that forbidden language, "about a star that was lonely, so it made companions from its own light. But the companions grew bright enough to leave, and the star learned that love means letting go." That's sad. "It's honest." I glanced up at the Queen, who hadn't moved, hadn't spoken. The weight of her attention pressed down like gravity. The best stories usually are. "Captain Chen," Kalof found his voice, though it shook. "You are addressing the Crown Princess. Do you understand what you've done? Not just any child. The heir to the throne of the Vasharan Collective. 80 billion souls spread across 24 worlds. And I'd just spoken to her in a language that hadn't been publicly used since before Earth had invented the wheel." I stood slowly, keeping my movements careful and non-threatening. The royal guards had shifted stance. Subtle, but I caught it, ready to move if ordered. "I understand," Translator Keloth. I switched to Confederation Common, watching the Queen's face for reaction. I've broken protocol. Possibly law. If Her Majesty wishes, I'll submit to whatever judgment she deems appropriate. Queen Vishara studied me for what felt like an eternity, and she did something I'd never seen in any diplomatic recording, any historical document, any cultural briefing. She smiled. It was a terrifying expression on a face not built for human-style grins, but unmistakable. You will join us for the evening meal, Captain Chen. We have much to discuss. She extended one primary hand in a gesture of invitation. And you will tell us exactly how the Keeper of Memories came to trust a human with our oldest secrets. The guards relaxed incrementally, and the child clapped her small hands together in delight. I'd come to this world to negotiate a military alliance, a simple diplomatic mission.
Request reinforcements against the Kreth.
Sign a treaty, leave. Instead, I'd apparently just walked into something far more complicated. The Queen turned toward the private chambers beyond the throne room. Translator Keloth, clear my afternoon schedule. This conversation will take time. Princess Mira, come. Our guest will need proper introduction to the court. The child took my hand again, fearless in the way only children can be. As we followed the Queen, I caught Keloth's expression. Fear, yes. But also something else. Something that looked almost like hope. The crystal walls began their song again, but the melody had changed, softer now. Almost curious. Whatever I'd started by speaking that first word, there was no going back. The private dining chamber was smaller than I expected, intimate. 6 places set around a low table of polished black stone that reflected the bioluminescent ceiling like a dark mirror. No guards inside, though. I had no doubt they stood just beyond the doors, listening. Queen Vishara gestured to a cushion opposite her own seat. Sit, Captain. Keloth, you as well. This concerns you. The translator lowered himself onto a cushion with visible reluctance. I followed suit, grateful that my xenocultural training had included proper posture for Vacheron floor dining. Princess Mira bounced onto the cushion beside her mother, still watching me with those bright, curious eyes. The keeper's name was Thesara, I began without preamble. The Queen had asked for truth, and I suspected she'd know if I hedged. She was 73 by your reckoning, 41 years in service to the archive. I knew her. The Queen's voice was softer now, stripped of the throne room's formality. She attended my coronation. A brilliant mind. When we received word of her death, we mourned. She was trying to evacuate the archive when the Kreth bombardment began. I could still smell the smoke, feel the heat of distant fires. My squad was on Thessar Prime for reconnaissance. We found her in the wreckage, pinned under a collapsed pillar. We tried to free her, but she knew she would not survive. The Queen finished. So she made you her heir. Just someone to carry what couldn't be saved physically. I met her gaze. She said the language was more than words, that it contained the soul of your people before the fracturing, before the wars that split your civilization into 1,000 fragments. She made me swear I would keep it safe until someone worthy could receive it. Keloth leaned forward. The old tongue isn't just language, Captain. It's the foundation of our legal system, our religious texts, the contracts that bind the collective together. His scales had gone pale. If you can speak it fluently, you could forge documents, rewrite history, claim authority you have no right to possess, which is why it was forbidden, the Queen added. After the fracturing, the surviving leaders agreed. The old language would be sealed. Only one keeper would maintain it, passing it to a chosen successor before death. This ensured no faction could use it to claim supremacy over others. I understood then the weight of what I carried. And now a human knows it, an outsider. Someone who could use it to manipulate your politics, or someone who could teach it. Princess Mira spoke up, her young voice cutting through the tension. Like in the story about the star. You could share the light, couldn't you? Mira, this is complicated, but it doesn't have to be. The princess turned to me. You speak funny, but you know the real words. The ones in grandmother's old hollows. If you teach me, I could teach others, and then it wouldn't be dangerous anymore. Right? From the mouths of children came a wisdom that silenced the room. Keloth recovered first. Your Majesty, with respect, the princess doesn't understand the implications. If the old language becomes common knowledge, every world in the collective will claim different interpretations of the ancient texts. The unity we've built over centuries could collapse overnight. Or, I said carefully, it could strengthen. Thessara told me something before she died. She said the fracturing happened because knowledge became a weapon instead of a gift. that your ancestors had hoarded power until the structure collapsed under its own weight. The Queen's secondary arms folded across her chest. A thoughtful gesture. The Keeper said this to you? A human? She said humans understood something her people had forgotten. That we spread our knowledge recklessly, dangerously, but also democratically. That every human child learns to read the same alphabet, speak variations of shared languages. She said it made us stronger than we looked. It also makes you chaotic, Kaloth muttered. Impossible to control. Yes, I didn't deny it. But we've survived because of it, not despite it. When the Kreth came, we didn't have a unified government. No single point of failure. They destroyed Earth's capital, killed half the Senate, and we kept fighting because power wasn't concentrated in one place. The Queen was silent for a long moment. Then she reached across the table and activated a holographic display. Ancient text shimmered in the air between us. I recognized the script from my studies. Read this, she commanded. I took a breath and began. The words flowed easier than I expected, muscle memory built from months of practice in the field. It was a legal document, I realized. Something about trade agreements between pre-fracturing city-states. When I finished, Kaloth looked ill. Perfect, the Queen said. Your accent is archaic, but your comprehension is flawless. Thessera taught you well in her final hours. I've spent 2 years filling in the gaps. I gestured to the hologram, studying fragments, comparing dialects, learning the patterns. It's been my focus whenever we're not fighting. Why? The Queen's question was sharp. Why dedicate yourself to a dead language of an alien species when your own world is threatened? Because Thessera asked me to. And because I gave my word. I held her gaze. Also because I believe she was right. Your people and mine are allies now, but we barely understand each other. If I can bridge that gap even slightly, maybe we stand a better chance against the Krates? Princess Mira had been watching the hologram with wide eyes. Mother, can you read the old words? I learned some as part of my royal education, the Queen admitted. Enough to verify documents if needed. But not fluently. The Keeper was the only one with complete mastery. Was, I said quietly. Now there's me, and I'm willing to teach, if you'll allow it. Your Majesty, this is unprecedented. Dangerous, the Council will never approve. The Council doesn't rule here. The Queen's voice carried steel beneath the silk, and we are facing extinction. The Kreth won't stop until they've consumed every world in this sector. Traditional protocols matter less than survival. She stood, and we all followed suit. The bioluminescent ceiling pulsed with her movement, responding to some signal I couldn't detect. Captain Chen, I'm going to propose something radical, something that would have been unthinkable a generation ago. She moved to the window, looking out over the crystal spires of her capital city. You will remain here as a guest of the crown. You will teach the old language to Princess Mira, and to me, and to whomever else I deem worthy of learning. Your Majesty, Kaloth began. In exchange, the Queen continued, ignoring the translator's protest, you will have access to our military archives, our strategic databases, everything we know about the Kreth and how to fight them. Humanity needs allies who trust you completely. This is how we build that trust. I understood what she wasn't saying. By learning her people's most sacred knowledge, I'd be vulnerable. If I betrayed that trust, she could expose me as someone who'd violated their deepest taboos. Mutual leverage, mutual risk. I accept, I said, but I have one condition. The Queen turned, one eyebrow raised. You negotiate with your Queen? I request, I amended, my crew. They're waiting in orbit, and they deserve to know I'm safe. They also deserve shore leave after 4 months in deep space. A slight smile. Granted. They may visit the surface in shifts, supervised naturally. Princess Mira clapped her hands again. So you'll stay? You'll teach me the old stories? I knelt beside her. I'll teach you everything I know. But you have to work hard. Languages take time. I can work hard. Her determination was fierce, uncompromising. Already I could see the Queen she'd become. Will you tell me about Earth, too? About human stories? If your mother permits? Cultural exchange benefits us all. Kaloth, arrange quarters for Captain Chen in the diplomatic wing. Comfortable, but monitored. As you command, Your Majesty. As he left to make arrangements, the Queen gestured for me to approach the window. The city sprawled below us, a masterwork of organic architecture and crystalline engineering. Millions of lives, all depending on her decisions. Thessara chose well, she said quietly. A soldier scholar, someone who understands both preservation and necessity. But understand this, Captain. If you abuse this trust, if you use the old language for political gain or manipulation, I will end you myself. No trial, no mercy. Understood, Your Majesty. Good. She turned to face me fully. Now, before we begin lessons, I need you to help me with something. Something only someone who speaks the true language can do. She activated another hologram. This one showed a star chart, but the labels were all in the ancient script. And one label, circled in urgent red, pulsed with warning indicators. What am I looking at? I asked. A Kreth transmission we intercepted 3 days ago. It's encoded, but the structure matches old Visharan military ciphers. Ciphers that shouldn't exist anymore because they were written in the forbidden language. Her voice was grim. Someone taught the Kreth how to speak our oldest secrets, and I need to know what they're saying. The translation took 6 hours. The cipher was complex, layered with grammatical tricks that only a native speaker would recognize. But I'd spent months memorizing Thessara's lessons, and gradually the message revealed itself. We worked in a secure chamber deep beneath the palace. Just the Queen, myself, and a silent security officer whose scales shimmered with augmented armor. No Keloth, no advisors. Some secrets were too dangerous for wide distribution. This word here, I pointed to a cluster of symbols. It's not standard military terminology, it's older. Prefracturing means something like harvest of souls, but with religious connotations. The Queen's face darkened. The communion of stars. A death cult we thought extinct. Apparently not. I continued decoding. They're offering the Kreth navigation data. Jump points that would bypass your outer defenses. In exchange for... oh no. What? In exchange for being elevated to the Eternal Fleet? I looked up from the hologram. I think they want the Kreth to assimilate them. To be absorbed into their collective consciousness. The Queen slammed her fist on the table, making the hologram flicker. Traitors, fools. The Kreth don't assimilate, they consume.
Destroy.
These cultists are signing the death warrant for every world in their region. Can you stop them? Not without knowing where they are? The transmission source was masked. She paced the small chamber, her frustration evident in every movement. We need more information. Can you decode anything else? I returned to the symbols, searching for context clues. The ancient language had layers of meaning that modern Visharan lacked. Each word choice revealed the speaker's social status, regional origin, educational background. Here, I highlighted a passage. This phrase uses the second-person honorific specific to the northern archipelago region of Keseth. That narrowed it to maybe 10,000 speakers before the fracturing. Today, probably a few hundred families who maintained the old traditions. Enough to start with. The Queen activated her communication device. I'm dispatching intelligence teams immediately. While she coordinated with her security forces, I continued reading. The message was longer than I'd initially thought, and the deeper sections contained something that made my blood run cold. Your Majesty, there's more. They're not just offering navigation data. She turned sharply. Explain. They have a prisoner, someone they claim can speak the voice of the Old Covenant and unlock the sealed ways. I read the passage again, making sure I hadn't mistranslated. They're describing someone who speaks fluent ancient Vaisharan, someone who could access systems that require verbal authentication in the old tongue. The security officer stiffened. The Queen went very still. That should be impossible, she said slowly. The Keeper is dead. You're the only other person with that knowledge. Unless Thessara had other students. But even as I said it, I knew that wasn't right. She'd told me I was the first outsider she'd ever taught, that she'd chosen me because she was dying and had no other options. Or, unless, the Queen said grimly, someone else discovered an archive we didn't know existed. She pulled up another display. This one showed security footage from various worlds, dates spanning the past 2 years. After the Keeper's death, we inventoried every known repository of ancient texts. 98% had been destroyed during the fracturing. The remaining 2% were under royal seal. What about unofficial archives? I asked. Private collections. Family heirlooms. Things that wouldn't appear in official records. The Queen's expression shifted. Not quite surprised, but close. You think like a thief, Captain. I think like an archaeologist. People hide treasures in unexpected places. then we have a problem. She zoomed in on one piece of footage, a figure in concealing robes, entering a building marked with ancient symbols. This was taken on Varath, a minor colony world, 7 months ago. The building is a historical museum. Nothing valuable, according to our records, mostly pottery and decorative items from the pre-fracturing era. But museums have archives, I said, seeing where this was going. Basement storage, items not on display. And 2 days after this footage was recorded, the museum burned down. Total loss. The fire was blamed on faulty wiring.
I studied the robed figure.
The gate was wrong for a Vacheron. Too rigid. Too careful. Can you enhance the image? The security officer worked the controls. The image zoomed and sharpened. At the edge of the robe, where it had shifted during movement, I caught a glimpse of skin, gray-green, scaled. But not Vacheron scaling. The pattern was wrong. Kreth hybrid, the officer said quietly. 2nd or 3rd generation. Enough genetic drift to pass as Vacheron at a distance. The Queen's primary hands clenched. So the Kreth have had agents among us for years, long enough to breed with captured populations, long enough to search for our weaknesses. And they found one, I finished. They found the language. Maybe not complete fluency, but enough to be dangerous. The Queen touched her communication device. Report. Your Majesty, our teams have located a compound in the northern archipelago matching Captain Chen's linguistic analysis, but there's a complication. A message in the old language repeating on all frequencies. They say they have a demonstration prepared. They're demanding you watch. The Queen and I exchanged looks. Put it through, she commanded. The hologram shifted. A new image appeared. A small chamber, dim lighting, and at the center, a figure bound to a chair. Human. My heart stuttered. I recognized her. Lieutenant Kara Voss, my second in command. She'd been on a supply run to the surface 3 hours ago. A robed figure entered the frame. When it spoke, the voice was distorted, but the words were clear. Perfect ancient Vacheron. Greetings, Queen Vacheron. We know you have the human translator. We know what she carries in her mind. But she is not the only one who can speak the old words. The figure placed a hand on Kara's shoulder. My lieutenant's eyes were wide with fear. Your military networks use the ancient language for authentication codes. We can access them now. We can disable your defenses. Lies, the security officer hissed. The authentication requires biometric verification. Voice alone isn't enough. But the robed figure continued. We don't need to break your systems. We just need you to believe we can. So here is our offer. Give us the human translator. Let her teach us everything the Keeper knew. In exchange, we'll return this one unharmed. The Queen's face was stone. And if I refuse, then we'll do to her what the Kreth do to all prisoners. We'll hollow her out and fill the empty space with their consciousness. She'll live, technically, but she'll be gone. Silence filled the secure chamber. Heavy. Suffocating.
Options, the Queen demanded. The security officer spoke first.
We can assault the compound. Fast strike team. Extract the prisoner before they can harm her. They'll kill her the moment sensors detect an approach, I said. My voice sounded distant, mechanical. Standard hostage protocol. They're not bluffing. Then what do you suggest? The Queen turned to me. Because I will not hand you over to these traitors.
It's not negotiable.
I thought about Kara. About her daughter back on Earth who'd just turned 7. About the promises I'd made to bring my crew home safe. There's a third option, I said slowly. But it's risky. Possibly suicidal. I'm listening. I let them think they've won. I agree to the exchange, but I teach them wrong. I gestured to the star charts still floating nearby. The ancient language is complex. Subtle. One wrong tonal inflection changes the entire meaning of a word. One misplaced honorific turns a command into an insult. I can teach them just enough to be dangerous to themselves. You'd be putting yourself in enemy hands. I can't guarantee extraction. I know. And if they detect the deception, they'll kill you both. Yes. Why would you risk this? I met her gaze. Because Kara is my responsibility. Because Thessera trusted me to use this knowledge wisely. And because sometimes the only way to win is to let the enemy think they've already won. Princess Mira's voice echoed in my memory. You could share the light, couldn't you? But light could also blind. The Queen studied me for a long moment, Then she nodded once, sharp and decisive. Prepare yourself, Captain. We're about to give these traders exactly what they think they want. The compound sat on a rocky island surrounded by churning seas that glowed with bioluminescent plankton, beautiful and isolated. Perfect for hiding secrets. I approached alone, as demanded. No weapons, no armor. Just myself and a small data tablet containing what I'd claimed was a complete archive of everything Thessera had taught me. The tablet was a lie. Half the information was correct. The other half was subtly, lethally wrong. Guards met me at the shoreline, real Visharans, not Kreth hybrids. Their expressions were zealous, fervent. True believers in whatever twisted philosophy the Communion of Stars preached. Captain Chen. One of them spoke in modern Vacheron, heavily accented. You came. We weren't certain you'd value your subordinate's life so highly. Where is she? You'll see her once we verify your cooperation. They led me through corridors carved from living rock. The walls bore ancient inscriptions, prayers to forgotten gods. I read them as we walked, memorizing patterns, looking for weaknesses. The chamber where they took me was larger than I expected. 30 cultists, maybe more, all wearing robes marked with star symbols. At the center on a raised platform sat an older Visharan female. Her scales were pale with age, but her eyes were sharp. Welcome, Translator. She spoke in the ancient tongue, testing me. I am High Oracle Vessa. We've been expecting you. I responded in kind, matching her formality. I'm here for Lieutenant Voss. Release her and I'll share what I know. In time. First, a demonstration. She gestured, and 2 guards brought Kara forward. My lieutenant looked roughed up but alive. Her eyes met mine, and I saw the question there. Do you have a plan? I hoped I did. Captain, Kara said in English. Don't give them anything. That's an order. Not hard enough to cause serious damage, but enough to make the point. Stop. I kept my voice level. You want my cooperation? Don't hurt her again. High Oracle Vessa smiled. Reasonable. Very well, Translator. Let's begin with something simple. These texts. She activated a hologram showing ancient documents. Military access codes. Tell us how to pronounce them correctly. I examined the codes. They were genuine, pulled from some archive I hadn't known existed. Dangerous in the wrong hands, but only if spoken correctly. The first code, I began, uses the third-person formal construction. The pronunciation is, I deliberately shifted a tonal inflection. Just slightly. Enough that it would sound right to someone without native fluency. But to a computer system designed to recognize precise ancient Visharan, it would register as gibberish. Vessa listened intently. Again. Slower. I repeated the false pronunciation. She mimicked it, her accent heavy but recognizable. If she tried to use this to access military systems, she'd trigger security alerts instead. Excellent. She looked pleased. Continue. For the next hour, I taught them. Careful poisoned lessons. Real enough to seem authentic, wrong enough to be useless. Kara watched from her restraints, understanding what I was doing. Her expression shifted from fear to grim determination. But I'd underestimated High Oracle Vessa, Captain Chen. Her voice cut through my latest explanation. You're lying. My blood went cold. Excuse me? Oh, the pronunciations are beautiful. Very authentic sounding. But I've been studying the old language for 20 years. I know enough to recognize when someone is teaching incorrectly. She stood, and suddenly I saw the intelligence behind those zealous eyes. Did you think we were fools? I think you're traitors selling out your own people to monsters. We're visionaries. She descended from the platform, moving closer. The Kreth represent evolution, transcendence. They offer unity on a level your fragmented species can't comprehend. And yes, the price is high. But transformation always requires sacrifice. That's not transformation. It's extinction dressed up as philosophy, semantics. She activated another hologram. This one showed Kreth ships, hundreds of them, moving through space in perfect synchronization. They're coming, Captain. Whether you help us or not, they're coming. The only question is whether your people and mine will face them as food or as partners. You really believe they'll accept you as equals? I believe they'll accept those who prove useful, and you, Translator, are very useful indeed. She nodded to the guards. Bring the conversion chamber. We'll extract the knowledge from her mind directly. Kara struggled against her restraints. Captain, run. Guards blocked every exit, and even if I escaped, they'd kill Kara. Then I heard it. a sound so faint I almost missed it. The crystal walls singing. The same resonance I'd noticed in the palace throne room. Not random, not natural, deliberate. I'd forgotten that Queen Vishara's palace wasn't the only structure built from living crystal. The ancient Visharans had used it everywhere, including this compound. And crystal, when properly tuned, could transmit signals across vast distances. I'd been broadcasting this entire time. Everything Vesa said. Everything the cultists revealed. All of it transmitted directly to the Queen's intelligence network. But I still needed to buy time for rescue to arrive. Wait. I raised my hands. You want useful? I'll give you something better than pronunciation guides. I'll give you the grammatical key, the pattern that unlocks everything. Vesa paused. Explain. The ancient language has layers. Surface meaning, contextual meaning, and deep meaning. Most scholars only understand the surface. But Thessera taught me the deeper structures. The mathematical relationships between words that reveal hidden meanings in legal documents, military orders, religious texts. I was improvising now, blending truth with fabrication. Give me access to your archives. Let me show you what you've been missing. Greed flickered across Vesa's face. And in exchange? She's a soldier, not a linguist. She's worthless to you. I'll stay. I'll teach you everything. But only if my lieutenant walks out of here alive. Behind her, I could see other cultists whispering, debating. Some wanted to accept. Others wanted to proceed with the extraction. Then the compound shook. Not an explosion. Something else. The crystal walls vibrated at a frequency that made my teeth ache. Every light in the chamber flickered. What was that? One of the guards shouted. Vesa's expression turned deadly. We've been compromised. She's been transmitting. Guards, seal all. The walls exploded inward. Crystal transforming, flowing like liquid, reshaping itself into barriers that separated cultists from each other, trapping them in individual cells of living stone. Through the chaos, figures in royal guard armor emerged. 20 of them, moving with mechanical precision. Leading them was Queen Vishara herself, her 4 eyes blazing with cold fury. High Oracle Vesa. The queen's voice carried harmonics that made the crystal walls sing in sympathetic pain. You are charged with treason, collaboration with enemy forces, attempted murder of a diplomatic guest. How do you plead? Vesa laughed, wild, unhinged. I plead evolution, Your Majesty. And you're too late to stop it. The Kreth already have what they need. Our hybrid agents have already infiltrated your military networks. The pronunciation codes that Captain Chen so kindly faked for us, they don't matter, because we have something better. She touched a control on her robe. A new hologram appeared. Kara, strapped to a chair. But this was recent footage. From just minutes ago, and the figure leaning over her, extracting neural data with Kreth technology, was speaking. In perfect, flawless ancient Visharan. Not Vesa's voice. Not any cultist I'd seen. This was someone else. Someone who'd been hidden. Someone who'd learned the language elsewhere. Surprise, Captain Chen. The figure turned to face the camera, and I saw features that were almost Visharan, but wrong in ways I couldn't quite identify. Did you think you were the Keeper's only student? Thessara was resourceful. She had backup plans. Contingencies. And one of those contingencies was me. The transmission cut out. The Queen's face had gone pale. That's impossible. Our intelligence confirmed Thessara had no apprentices. Your intelligence was wrong, Vesa said. She took on a student 40 years ago, long before the bombardment. Someone brilliant, dedicated. Someone who mastered the language so completely that even the Keeper couldn't tell she was actually a Kreth hybrid. 3rd generation, nearly indistinguishable from true Vasharan. My mind raced. If she's fluent, if she has neural data from Kara about human military protocols, she can... Human and Vasharan. She can unlock sealed systems. Rewrite authentication protocols. Open every door we've spent centuries securing. And she's had the neural data for 3 minutes, Vesa added smugly. More than enough time to transmit it to the Kreth fleet waiting at the system's edge. Your defenses are already falling, Your Majesty. The only question is whether you surrender now and save some of your people, or fight and watch them all die. The Queen moved faster than I'd ever seen. One primary hand grabbed Vesa by the throat. The other activated a communication device. Fleet Command, this is Queen Vishara. Implement protocol silence immediately. Shut down all systems that use ancient language authentication. Switch to emergency backup protocols. Authorization code. She spoke a phrase in modern Vasharan, one I didn't recognize. Your Majesty, a voice crackled back. Implementing protocol silence will disable 70% of our defensive grid. We'll be vulnerable. Do it. Now. The guard holding Kara cut her restraints. My lieutenant stumbled free, and I caught her as she nearly fell. You okay? I asked. Been better. She touched her head where the neural extractor had been attached. They got everything, Cap. Every memory of our network architecture, our tactical databases, our...
But you're alive. That's what matters.
The Queen released Vesa, who collapsed gasping. Take her and all other cultists into custody. Separate cells. No communication. I'll decide their fate later. As the guards moved to comply, the compound shook again. Harder this time. The crystal walls screamed. The Kreth fleet. The Queen pulled up a tactical display. They're here. 20 ships. They're using the navigation data Vesa's people provided. They know exactly where to strike. I studied the display. I would be so happy. The Kreth were moving in perfect formation, targeting the defensive grid weak points. But something was wrong with their approach vector. Your Majesty, look at their formation. They're clustering. Standard Kreth pack hunting technique. They're maximizing firepower concentration, but they're also making themselves vulnerable to area effect weapons. I zoomed in on the lead ship. It's like they're following a textbook strategy without adapting to local conditions. The Queen's eyes narrowed. The neural data. They're using Lieutenant Voss's tactical knowledge, but interpreting it through Kreth collective consciousness. They're not improvising. They're executing exactly what her memories say humans would do in this situation.
Risky. Desperate.
But possibly our only chance. Kara, I turned to my lieutenant, how much do they know about Operation Broken Mirror? Everything. But that op was never meant for space combat. It was a ground assault protocol for forcing enemy formations into kill zones by making them think they're pursuing scattered targets. I looked at the Queen. Can your fleet scatter into small groups? Make it look like you're retreating in panic? Understanding dawned. And when the Kreth clustered to pursue, we hit them with concentrated fire. Use their own predictability against them. Exactly. But it requires perfect timing, and it requires your ships to look genuinely vulnerable. The Queen activated fleet-wide communications. All ships implement scatter protocol. Make it convincing. I want the Kreth to think we're broken. Your Majesty, an officer protested, if we scatter, they can pick us off individually. Sometimes weakness is the strongest weapon. The Vacheron fleet broke apart, ships fleeing in different directions. On the tactical display, it looked like chaos. Panic. Defeat. The Kreth took the bait. Their formation tightened, ships grouping together to pursue what they thought were easy targets. They were following Kara's memories perfectly, executing human tactical doctrine without question. Now, the Queen commanded. The fleeing Vasharan ships pivoted, everyone simultaneously. They'd been running toward prepared firing positions, not away from the enemy. And now, with the Kreth clustered in perfect target formation, they unleashed everything. Energy weapons, missiles, kinetic impactors. The combined firepower of the entire fleet focused on a space barely a kilometer across. The lead Kreth ship exploded. Then the next. The ones behind tried to scatter, but they were packed too tight, moving too fast. Collisions, secondary detonations, a cascade of destruction that ripped through their formation like fire through dry grass. In 90 seconds, it was over. 16 Kreth ships destroyed, 4 damaged and limping away. The rest of the system was clear. The tactical display showed silence where moments before there had been an invading fleet. Impossible, Vesa breathed. She was still on her knees, watching the hologram. They had your codes, your tactical data. They should have won. They had data, I corrected. Not wisdom, not creativity. They couldn't imagine we'd use our own knowledge against them. I looked at the Queen. That's the difference between consciousness and collective programming. We can lie to ourselves. They can't. The Queen deactivated the display. Around us, the cultists were being led away. Kara leaned against a wall, exhausted but alive. The compound's crystal walls had returned to their natural state, singing softly in the aftermath of violence. Captain Chen. The Queen approached me. You gambled with your life, with your subordinate's life, with my entire fleet. Yes, Your Majesty. It could have failed catastrophically. Yes, Your Majesty. She studied me for a long moment, then extended one primary hand, a gesture of respect among her people. Thesara chose well. You understand what she was trying to preserve. Not just words, but the wisdom to use them correctly. I clasped her hand carefully. The language is yours. I'm just a keeper, like she was. No. You're more than that. She glanced at Kara, then back to me. You're a bridge between our peoples, between the past and whatever future we're fighting for. Princess Mira's voice echoed again in my memory. Can you teach me the old stories? Maybe that was the answer. Not hoarding knowledge or weaponizing it. Just teaching. Sharing, building understanding one conversation at a time. Your Majesty, I said slowly, I have a request. Another one? A hint of amusement in her voice. The cultists. Don't execute them. They betrayed their own people. Collaborated with monsters. They deserve death. They deserve consequences, yes. But killing them won't solve the underlying problem. I gestured to the ancient inscriptions on the walls. They turned to the Kreth because they felt disconnected from their own history. Because the old ways were forbidden and the new ways felt empty. What if instead of execution, you gave them education? Made them study the real meaning of the ancient texts, understand what they were trying to destroy. Vessa laughed bitterly. You want to rehabilitate us? After everything? I want to break the cycle, I said. Thesara told me the fracturing happened because knowledge became a weapon. You just proved her right. So let's try something different. Let's make knowledge a gift again. The Queen considered this. Long moments passed. Finally she nodded. Conditional exile. They'll be sent to the archive world. Under guard. They'll spend the next decade cataloging and translating pre-fracturing texts. If they survive that, if they truly understand what they almost destroyed, we'll discuss clemency. Your Majesty, that's... Vessa began. That's mercy you don't deserve, but are receiving anyway. Be grateful Captain Chen believes in rehabilitation.
The Queen turned away.
Take them. All of them. As the cultists were led out, Kara moved beside me. You saved their lives, Cap. After what they did to me. Just people who made terrible choices because they were scared and ignorant. We can't afford to kill everyone who makes mistakes. Not if we want to build something better after the war. She touched my shoulder. For what it's worth, I hope you're right. Me too. Outside, dawn was breaking over the bioluminescent sea. The palace shuttle waited to take us back to the capital. Back to Princess Mira and her lessons. Back to teaching and learning and trying to build bridges between species who'd spent too long speaking past each other. The Queen paused at the shuttle entrance. Captain, one more thing. That other student, the Kreth hybrid who claims Thesara taught her. Do you believe it? I thought about Thesara's final hours. Her desperation. Her determination to save what she could. I believe she did what she thought she had to. Maybe she taught someone who seemed trustworthy at the time. Maybe that person changed. Or maybe it's a lie designed to make us paranoid. Either way, we'll need to find out. We will. The Queen boarded the shuttle. Together. Because that's what allies do. As we flew back across the crystal spires, I watched the sun rise over an alien world that was starting to feel almost like home. Kara dozed beside me, exhausted. The Queen spoke quietly with her security detail, planning next steps. And I thought about words. About how they could heal or hurt, build or destroy, depending on who spoke them and why. Thesara had given me a gift wrapped in responsibility. Now I understood what she'd really been asking. Not to preserve the language perfectly, but to use it wisely, to share it carefully, to let it evolve into something that could serve both the past and the future. A forgotten language, remembered. Not as a weapon, not as a treasure to hoard, but as a conversation, one that was just beginning.